In this video, I'm going to talk about 4 ways in which emergency distance learning can help improve public education. Pretty much every single thing that I've read about the emergency remote learning situation we just found ourselves in is that it was a complete disaster. The only thing that surprises me about that is that anyone's surprised. We asked students, teachers, and families to make an extreme shift in the way that school looked in a short period of about a week. There's almost no way that that could have turned out well. But I also think that a lot of people have drawn the wrong conclusions about the failures of distance learning. A lot of people out there are arguing that this proves that online learning doesn't work. To me, that was never the question. I've never really heard anyone argue that all students should suddenly start to learn online. To me, the more interesting question is to look at why some students and teachers were able to make a more fluid shift to online learning, whereas others were not. I think the answer is pretty clear, and that's that we have a massive digital divide in our society. Rather than bemoan the failure of distance learning, we should take this as an opportunity to make a collective leap forward and move our teaching practices into the 21st century. My name is Sam Carey, and this is my YouTube channel for the new EdTech classroom. As I mentioned in the beginning, emergency remote teaching put a bright spotlight on the digital divide in our society. The first way that I think we can use this situation to improve educational outcomes for students is to ensure that everyone has access to the internet. The number one issue that had to be resolved when we moved into distance learning was that we had to figure out how to get some students and families access to the internet. The result was that a lot of companies figured out different ways to offer cheaper internet access to families, and the result is that a lot of people that didn't have internet access now have it. Now that some people have greater access to the internet than they did before, my hope is that this leads to a movement where we start to treat broadband internet the same way as we do any other public utility. It's clear that having access to the internet is a basic equity issue in the same way that all other public services are. Now that so many more people have been given access, we need to make a collective push to make sure that internet access is a universal right in our country. The second way in which I think this situation can improve educational outcomes for our students has to do with devices. I've long advocated for one-to-one computers in schools because of the need to be providing students with the technology skills they will need in order to be ready for the world today, as well as all the jobs of the future that we don't even know about. During remote teaching, a ton of students were given a device so that they could access learning from home. Now that those students have a device, are we really going to ask them to give it back? Instead, we need to ensure that all students have predictable access to a laptop. One-to-one computers should be a funding priority, and I wouldn't mind seeing the big tech companies pitch in to help out. The third way that I think that remote teaching is going to improve public education is the fact that so many teachers were introduced to new technology platforms that they had never known about before. The reality that all of us in teaching know is that the job is so demanding that it's very difficult to learn new skills, and it's even more difficult to go out into the world and try to figure out what to do with all these new technology platforms. I know for a fact that thousands of teachers started using all kinds of tools that they never even knew existed. Teachers who have learned about new tools to increase interactivity and engagement, as well as personalized learning, simply aren't going to go back to teaching without those tools. If teachers take a more infused, integrative approach to technology in their classrooms, that's going to improve educational outcomes for all students, and it's also going to help ensure that students are ready for the modern world. Lastly, emergency remote teaching will hopefully reform the way that teacher professional development is run. Unfortunately, teacher PD violates nearly every single standard that's set for good teaching. It isn't personalized, it isn't interactive, and many times teachers leave PD feeling like they didn't really build their skill set. In our modern world, there are all sorts of different ways to learn. Many teachers turn to online platforms like webinars or YouTube videos in order to build their skills in ways that made sense to them. When we go back to school, school leaders should capitalize on the fact that so many teachers have been onboarded into these new technology platforms, and they should also look at different strategies for how to differentiate instruction for teachers and personalize their learning so that they're able to learn something that actually translates to better outcomes for students. If you have any thoughts about this issue that you'd like to share yourself, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching my video to the end. If you found the tips that I shared helpful, please share it with other teachers that you know, hit the like button, and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any of my weekly updates. You can also check out some of the other tutorials I have on my channel by clicking on one of those 2 videos above. And if you're interested in downloading any of the resources that I've created and show on my videos, please visit my website at www.newedtechclassroom.com. Lastly, if you want to check me out on social media, my Twitter handle, Facebook page, and Pinterest account are all in the description below. Thanks so much and have a great week.